The first question I'm going to ask to my distinguished guest, but of course, first I would like to announce who my guests are. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. I am very delighted to have you both in my studio. Right to my left is Hasanat Sahib. You are the Naib Amir Sahib of the Jamaat here in Germany, and I have Imteaz Shaheen Sahib with me as well. You are a Murabbi Silsila. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. Just as Nasir and Naman already announced, Alhamdulillah, the message of Islam Ahmadiyyat already reached Germany even before 400 years, because the promised Messiah ﷺ was very keen on, of course, spreading the message of Islam Ahmadiyyat all over the world. 100 years of the Ahmadi Muslim Jamaat in Germany obviously means 100 years of preaching Islam Ahmadiyyat. But Hasanat Sahib, as I said, the promised Messiah already achieved what seems almost unachievable at that time. He managed to get the message of the Ahmadiyyat not only to this part of the world, but also Germany. How could this happen? Like how did his message reach Germany?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Nasir, as you said, Allah Ta'ala gave the promised Messiah the glad tiding that he will cause his message to reach the corners of the earth. मैं तेरी तबलीग को ज़मीन के किनारों तक पहुंचाऊंगा. And in the lifetime of the promised Messiah, the foundation of this spreading of the message all around the world was laid by his work and by his very dedicated work in the cause of Islam, of the true Islam. So Hazrat Aqdas Masih Maud also started to write letters to various leaders of the world, as it is the sunnah of the prophets, and also the Holy Prophet Muhammad had written letters to kings, etc. So in Europe back then, in Germany, of course there was another situation. It was not the Federal Republic of Germany as we know it from today. The Germans were very much distributed into various in various countries, but there was Prussia and there was the German Reich. There was monarchy in Germany, and back then Otto von Bismarck, who is a very prominent name in the history of Germany, was the first Chancellor of Germany, not the Chancellor of the Federal Republic, but Chancellor under a monarchy. And this Otto von Bismarck was the man whom the promised Messiah ﷺ had written a letter and had told him that the promised Messiah has come. So I think it was, I have for my help a little brochure which Jamaat Germany and the History Department has published. It was in the year 1885 where Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ wrote this letter. And then in the next years there were also some publications here in Germany which referred to books and writings of the promised Messiah ﷺ, and I think we will have the opportunity to learn about them also in this discussion. And a very interesting fact which I read was that Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ instructed to Mufti Muhammad Sadiq Sahib, who was a very famous Sahabi, companion of the promised Messiah ﷺ, to learn the German language. He started to learn, and then the promised Messiah ﷺ had a dream and instructed him to wait for this, and this task should be delayed a bit. So he had then some other tasks to do, but these were the starts of this message of the promised Messiah ﷺ, which was the real message of Islam Ahmadiyyat, of the true Islam. So it is a very great blessing that this soil and this land got these letters of the Prophet of the era, and so all started with these little actions with big impacts which had on this country.
Jazakallah. Absolutely. I mean, it is remarkable how even back then the seeds were already planted. Murabbi Sahib, if you could tell us, because you already shed some light on it, but maybe you can elaborate further. The message was not only heard here, but it resounded with the hearts of the people here. Maybe you can tell us some of the things that happened, some of the people that reacted to the message of the promised Messiah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. As you rightly mentioned, to reach the hearts, that's one thing. And as when we look at the history of prophets and we read the Quran, so we notice that whenever Allah the Almighty sends His Prophet, He orders the angels to create such love and affection and respect for the prophets all over the world. And the same thing we see when the promised Messiah, ﷺ, he came. And just to mention one, and you know, no human being is able to create such love and affection in the hearts of people. Even to the Holy Prophet ﷺ, Allah stated in the Holy Quran that even if you would have spent all the wealth and everything which is existence in the world, you wouldn't be able to create that love among the companions. So just to mention one example we know about is a German lady, Carola Mann, and she lived in a small district in the city of Munich, and she wrote a letter to the promised Messiah, ﷺ, where she mentioned that for many months she tried to find the address where to send the letter to, and she heard and read about the promised Messiah, ﷺ. She expressed her love and affection, her respect. First of all, she apologized that she's writing a letter to a prophet, and your claim is to be a prophet and to be the Messiah, and I love the Messiah. And she also expressed how pitiful it is that in India, where the promised Messiah ﷺ lives, idolatry is widely spread, and that his message is very important. And she even asked the promised Messiah ﷺ, kindly let me know what kind of, or how can I serve from this part of the world the religion. And so in this letter, she also wrote this very beautiful sentence: "Dear Mirza, rest assured I am with you and I love you. So and consider me as your friend." So
I think this really stands out, right? Yeah. Like someone is already offering their assistance, asking how can I help, but. What I mean, if we've talked about this is also already during the lifetime of the promised Messiah. Hasanat, maybe you can shed some light on it. Why are we celebrating the centenary of the Ahmadi Muslim Jamaat in 2023 then?
Yes, a very good question, because I think we are not celebrating the 100 years of the message of Ahmadiyyat, because the message of Ahmadiyyat, alhamdulillah, was already sent by the promised Messiah, ﷺ. But the work, with the systematic work of preaching Islam Ahmadiyyat in Germany, started in the lifetime of Hazrat Muslim Maud radiyallāhu anhu, the second caliph. Sayyidina Hazrat Muslim Maud radiyallāhu anhu back then had a great vision. Of course, he was led by Allah Ta'ala Almighty, and Hazrat Masih Maud had also made these prophecies that the Muslim Maud who will come, under his guidance, his message will have a big spread in the world. And Hazrat Muslim Maud sent various missionaries to different countries, and in this context also a missionary was sent to Germany, to Berlin. It was Maulvi Mubarak Ali Sahib, who was a missionary, Muballigh Silsila, and he came to Berlin in the year 1922. So this marked basically the systematic start of preaching of Islam Ahmadiyyat in Germany. And within the short time period of 1 year, he managed to have such big impacts, and his work was so fruitful that that Jamaat was ready to build a mosque in 1923. And Hazrat Muslim Maud radiyallāhu anhu had made a tahreek that the Ahmadi women of Qadian should make financial sacrifice for this mosque. And as we know,
it couldn't happen back then, right?
Because the situation in Germany was not stable, and it all worsened, and the Nazis regime came, and then the Second World War started, etc. So this time period was for the Jamaat period, where the preaching had to be stopped. But the 1923 year was the year where
a Jamaat was established.
The Jamaat was established in Germany.
So basically, it's the centenary of the establishment of the Jamaat here. Murabbi Sahib, there's also a very special connection between mosques and Tabligh in Germany, and the spreading of the message of the promised Messiah, ﷺ. Can you shortly shed some light, like how did this correlation start? When did we begin in Germany to build mosques? How did it and how does it affect Tabligh?
Yes, the promised Messiah ﷺ has made it very clear that if you want to spread the message of Islam Ahmadiyya, you just have to build a mosque. And so after this mosque building was stopped in Hamburg, in the northern part of Germany, the first mosque was built in 1957. It was completed. And after that in Frankfurt in 59 and so on. So after that many mosques already came. And we have always seen that even though even in today's world we see people who oppose whenever we want to build a mosque, because it's very hard to accept it for people when they don't know personally Muslims and especially community members. But even this opponents, I think they play the biggest role in spreading the message, and people get to know about the community. And our beloved Imam, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih, may Allah be his helper, has already opened 2 mosques in the past days on this tour this year, and he's instructed us and made it very clear that we have to pray also in the mosque and fill our mosque, and then we will be able to spread the message when people will come to our mosque, and we will be able to speak to them, tell them about the Ahmadi community. They will learn about the beautiful teachings of Islam Ahmadiyyat. So that's obviously our responsibility on our side, and it has always been playing a big role in spreading the message that wherever we have a mosque, and our mosques are always open, we preach also in German language so people can understand. They can join us in the prayers. They can listen to the preaching, etc.
So there's many ways in which they affect actually our Tabligh work. Just as a last question to both of you, if you could shortly talk about, I mean, Hazur mentioned this during the Friday sermon yesterday as well, what responsibilities come with the centenary? Because of course we know as Muslims we don't just celebrate something, not even our birthday. It's always a time to reflect, and it's the same is true for the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat. Hasanat, maybe you could start. What are the expectations of Hazur for the German Jamaat?
We are very blessed that Hazur Anwar Ayyadullah Aziz is present in this Jalsa Salana, and as Murabbi Sahib also said that Hazur has talked about the centenary of Jamaat Germany, and I think the expectations of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Ayyadullah Aziz are that we don't just celebrate the 100 years. So this celebration of a time period is not the essence of celebrating. It is the reformation which we make in ourselves, the tarbiyat. It is the changes which we develop in our souls, and the message of Islam Ahmadiyyat which should be reflected in our deeds. And Hazur Sayyidullah talked about them, and also the Khulafa blessed this German soil with their presence in the last century. And I mean, since the time of Hazrat Muslim Maud, we have seen that the Khulafa have come to Germany and spread the message of Islam, and also have laid the foundation stone of the tarbiyat of this Jamaat, which was ever since growing and exponentially growing because of this attention of the Khulafa. So there are many expectations which are of spiritual character, and Hazur Anwar Ayyadullah Aziz also expects from us that we not only celebrate but should practice this message. So this is the best celebration of the centenary.
Absolutely. Rabbi Sahib, as Hasanat Sahib has said, if you could just very briefly explain to our viewers also how this accelerated maybe, or if you look at the recent times, if you see how guests react to Hazur, maybe you can summarize what the reactions to people are, because if we do Tabligh, it always has a different kind of effect. When Hazur Anwar is talking to the people directly, it has a different effect. If you could shortly summarize what effect you witnessed, for example.
Yes, we see that for the past few years, and even on this Jalsa, the guests who came, and inshallah there will be a sitting with our beloved Imam, with the external guests as well. And we always see, even in the opening of the previous mosque, that people were really much, they appreciated that it was a simple message of Islam, which is it's a message of true and peace and harmony. And but the importance of that, because on the other side we see that the world is slowly drifting away from true peace, and they appreciate it, and they express that we need this man to be heard and to be listened to from all over the world. And I think it's very it's a great effect. And as I mentioned, that this kind of love and expression of respect, it can only be created by Allah the Almighty, and no human being is able to do so. And now it's our responsibility, as Hasanat rightly mentioned, that we'll reflect upon ourselves and keep reflecting that what part are we playing in this responsibility.
Absolutely. Jazakallah, you both mentioned the topic of responsibility. First and foremost, Jazakallah for taking part in this interesting talk. And dear viewers, while speaking of responsibility, of course, the responsibility not only goes to us, but also to our kids in the future years. They also play a big role here on the Jalsa Salana in the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat. And on the occasion of the Jalsa Salana, we wanted to know what are the feelings of kids here on the Jalsa Salana, and of course when Hazur Aqdas participates.